This is Mark Montemare, and this is another instructional video from thecourtstore.com. This video will demonstrate how to fill cracks of various sizes on a tennis court or any other all-weather concrete or asphalt recreational surface. There are 4 tools typically used for filling cracks. This is my favorite for most cracks, the V-shaped squeegee. Maybe the simplest tool for small crack repair jobs is the flexible knife. A floor scraper can come in very handy for wider cracks, let's say cracks wider than 1 inch. And I know a number of professionals who like the flat squeegee, although this method uses quite a bit of material. Of course, before you start filling the cracks, you need to clean them out. Something like a screwdriver or a scraper will work well. If you have a lot of cracks, it's a good idea to use a pressure cleaner first to blast all of the stuff out of the crack. As you watch our technician, Paul Montemare, fill this crack with the V-shaped squeegee, you'll see why it's my favorite crack filling tool. First, he'll drizzle some of our super patching compound along the crack, right over the top. He doesn't have to get it down in the crack. As long as it's close, the V-shaped squeegee will take care of the rest. And then he'll start where he left off on the crack, and he'll just push the squeegee along. The squeegee, you'll notice, traps the patch mix inside the V, keeps it a very narrow profile. As he pushes it, generally they'll go back and forth. They'll cover a crack 3 times to fill it in. So you see he goes back to where he started, and then he'll come back for the 3rd pass and continue on from there to the rest of the crack. Again, out to the end of the crack, and then he'll turn around and head back. Now he'll set his squeegee down, and I think you'll really appreciate this last technique he'll use. He's going to pick up a floor scraper, something you can find at the flooring department at your local builder supply, and he'll scrape this entire patch. It's not quite dry yet, so it's very easy to scrape, and this stuff gets like super glue if you let it dry all the way. But by doing this, he'll feather that patch right down to the court surface so that it takes very little preparatory work after this is done to get your cracks ready to coat over. When you're finished filling the cracks and scraping them, you can walk the court with a blower and a scraper and blow all of this residue that you've scraped up off of the court. Notice how nicely the scraper feathers that patch mix right down to the court surface. Most people like to spray a fine mist of water over the area before they place their crack filler. It helps feather the patch mix into the surface and make scraping much easier. The same floor scraper you use for scraping the patch material away comes in handy when you need to fill wider cracks, let's say 2-inch wide, 1.5-inch wide cracks. The tip of a V-shaped squeegee can tend to dig into a wider patch, but you'll see with the scraper it will leave a nice layer dead even with the top of the surrounding court because it's rigid. Once again, these surfaces are using a mist of water to help feather the edges of the crack filler into the surrounding surface. Some technicians like the flat color coding squeegee for filling cracks, and it works very well, but it takes a very light touch, and it does use quite a bit more material, as you'll see in this clip. You'll notice that once again they've sprayed a little water on the court surface before they begin laying the patch. You'll notice they use the same technique we saw with the V-shaped squeegee. They'll pass over the crack more than one time to fill it in and feather it out. And they'll depend on the water on the court surface to feather the edges, because you can't walk a floor scraper over obviously a patch this wide without digging into it. I don't generally recommend this technique for first-time do-it-yourselfers. It does take a bit of practice to get the technique so that you don't make a pretty big mess on the court. Now on his last pass, you'll notice this surfacer will use up all of this extra material you see at the end as he moves along the patch with a very light touch. This is the technique I was talking about that is not so easily done by someone the first time around. He makes it look a little easier than it really is. For those with great knees or a small number of cracks, I think filling cracks with a flexible knife is pretty self-explanatory. Your cracks won't always come out as nice as you have seen some of the professionals in this video. But don't despair. A nice floor sander will make a professional out of anyone. This is a floor sander, a drum floor sander, and it will hone the edges of your crack right down to the surface with ease. You want to think of your patches the same way you would, say, spackling patches on drywall. You want it feathered down so that it blends very well with the surrounding surface. Then when you apply your coatings, the patches will disappear. This is an orbital floor sander. It's also a fairly non-aggressive sander, especially if you have large areas, a lot of cracks. It's a little less surgical than the drum floor sander, but it is also hard to booger up the court. And the last step in the process is what we call a feather coat. Now in this case, this do-it-yourselfer is using a roller to roll a coat over his crack repair. A lot of professional surfacers and do-it-yourselfers pour out a little drizzle of coating and apply it with a squeegee. It's much faster, but this technique works just fine. This uses a very small amount of coating, but it does a good job of hiding your patches before you start applying your full coats over the court. Of course, you should scrape and blow the entire court before applying this feather coat, and then once again after the feather coat has applied before you start the full coatings over the court surface. And always scrape and blow before every coat. Thank you for watching our video on repairing cracks on a tennis court. It's very important to us that all of our do-it-yourselfers have the information they need to make their projects a success. You'll find all of our videos and tons of information at our website, thecourtstore.com. Our phone numbers are there as well. Don't hesitate to call us with any questions you might have. We love to talk tennis courts.